Welcome to this video about making adaptations and scaffolding as part of high-quality teaching. High-quality teaching. High-quality teaching led by teachers across the curriculum is essential to achieving the best outcomes for all pupils. Part of high-quality teaching includes adaptive approaches that are provided and facilitated by the class teacher during routine lessons. Class TAs can support this, particularly through scaffolding pupils' learning. Pupils with SEND and additional needs are most likely to require adaptive, high-quality teaching, but it's important to note that adaptive strategies will vary significantly from one pupil to another, depending on their profile of abilities and their potential barriers to learning. Common types of adaptive, high-quality teaching strategies in lessons for pupils with SEND. 1. Changing the pupil's grouping during a lesson. Providing the pupil with extra visual cues and prompts, including use of familiar symbols and visual reinforcements. Modelling a technique or approach to the pupil. Using the pupil's name first to draw their attention, followed by keyword instructions. Breaking down longer instructions for the pupil into smaller chunks, followed by checking that the pupil knows what to do. Organising an activity that the pupil needs to complete into small components. Highlighting to the pupil the essential content and removing distracting information. Allowing the pupil additional time to respond during class discussions. Differentiating the pupil's worksheets, for example, use of graphic organisers. And reinforcing success, for example, by praising the pupil. Common types of adaptive high-quality teaching strategies in lessons for pupils with SEND. 2. Providing the pupil with concrete materials and props in activities and as part of instruction. Using backward chaining, if this is breaking down a task for a pupil into smaller steps and teaching the last step first, then the second to last step, etc. Explicitly prompting, modelling and reinforcing positive behaviours that you expect from the pupil. Providing the pupil with advance notice of changes of activity or routine. Making explicit links between activities and the pupil's interests. Using distraction and diversion strategies that work well for the pupil. Facilitating verbal rehearsal for the pupil. Using simple restorative approaches to quickly repair relationships if and when needed. Giving the pupil limited choices to allow the pupil some control with the same end result. And scaffolding a task for the pupil. We'll cover this now. Scaffolding and TAs. When planning lessons, teachers should always provide guidance to TAs on how to support individual pupils with SEND in their lessons. This includes some of the adaptive strategies we have covered. Effective TAs also scaffold pupils' learning and encourage independence within the right level of challenge. Self-scaffolding. The general initial expectation is that pupils will self-scaffold. TAs should then intervene appropriately when pupils demonstrate they are unable to proceed without support. Self-scaffolding represents the highest level of pupil independence. It involves using some of the strategies they've previously learned, planning how to approach a task, problem solving during the task, and reviewing the success of the task and how they approached it. TAs observe, giving pupils time for processing and thinking. Here, the aim is to nudge pupils into deploying a self-scaffolding technique. For example, what do you need to do first? And what's your plan? Or an encouraging comment. For example, you can do this. Prompting. TAs provide prompts when pupils are unable to confidently self-scaffold. Prompts are generic, encouraging pupils to draw on their own knowledge, including silent prompts, saying nothing and resist the temptation to do or say something. Gestural prompts, non-verbal gestures such as pointing to a prompt sheet. Verbal prompts, designed to get the pupil to think some more and or provide reassurance. Remember, using generic, not specific language. And physical prompts, typically and more common with younger children, physically guiding the child's hands to complete the task, also known as hand-over-hand assistance. Cluing. Often pupils know the strategies or knowledge required to solve a problem, but they might find it difficult to call them to mind. TAs providing cluing support use one or more words that are specific to the task. They start with a small clue, a small piece of information or a hint that will help them to work out what to do, and they might word them in the form of questions. Modelling. Prompts and clues can be ineffective when pupils encounter a task that requires a new skill or strategy. TAs model by demonstrating to the pupil a part of the task while the pupil actively watches and listens, encouraging the pupil to then try the same step for themselves immediately afterwards, ideally independently. The TA solely observes here. And sometimes also recasting. This involves repeating or reflecting a pupil's words, but in the correct form. Correcting. Correcting involves the TA providing answers. It requires no independent thinking. Occasionally, it is appropriate to do this, for example, to move on to another task or learning point when a pupil is very stuck, or as a tool to redirect the strategy back to modelling. TAs should always aim to use the other approaches first. This is the end of this video. You can view more videos on this channel in the Bite Size series, including other bite-sized, high-quality teaching videos.